Welcome to Mac Stories Unwind, the show that's all about the picks. I'm John Voorhees, and with me is Federico Viticci. Hey, Federico.
Hello, John. How are you?
Doing all right. Happy Friday to you.
Thank you.
We've got some picks today. Where should we start? Do you want me to start, or do you want to go first?
Well, I want to go first. I want to go first because I feel like I've been able to play some more video games this past week because I felt like once I was done with the iOS 16 review, before jumping back into the iPadOS one, which as we're recording this earlier in the week. We still don't have a new beta of iPadOS, and so I'm still in that limbo of like the angle that I will take with the iPadOS review will depend on the stability of iPadOS. And I know that I will be, it's going to come down to the wire with this one, but I feel like Apple itself is also, coming down to the wire with iPadOS.
Right.
So I'm still sort of putting together my thoughts, and my opinion will change depending on the state of iPadOS, what it's like in normal use. And that I still haven't been able to try at the moment with this beta. So I felt, before I jump back into that, I want to relax a little. I need a distraction after the iOS review. I need to play some video games for a few days. And so that's what I've been doing, mostly at night, a couple of hours each night. And my pick for today is the game that I've been playing the most over the past week, and it's Cyberpunk 2077. So Cyberpunk has seen a resurgence in popularity lately, and I think there's a couple of factors at play here. So Cyberpunk very famously became an example of how not to rush a video game. It came out last year on PC and consoles, and it was so buggy and it was so rushed and problematic at launch that, for example, Sony pulled the game from the PlayStation Store because it was essentially unplayable on older hardware, on PS4 and PS4 Pro. Had a ton of bugs, a ton of issues, and it was kind of playable on PS5, but it was not as good looking as on PC. And there were a ton of other technical issues, like actual gameplay issues with the game originally. And so that became a story in and of itself of CD Projekt Red, the developers of Cyberpunk, and previously The Witcher, right? They needed to release this game in 2021 because of financial reasons, because it needed to come out like in a specific quarter last year. But you could tell that the game was not finished, that the game was not ready. And despite the initial patches to fix stuff like NPCs disappearing from the game and other, you're driving your car through a wall and all sorts of other technical glitches, despite those initial patches, the game still wasn't great. But the thing is, CD Projekt Red recognized the problem last year and promised we are going to make this game better. And we are going to live up to the expectations of our fans and the expectations of the people that have been waiting for this game since the original teaser in 2013. And so progressively, over the course of 12 months, CD Projekt Red went back in and started fixing and improving the game, update after update. And a couple of weeks ago, I think, actually maybe a month ago, they put out this massive update. I believe it's version 1.6 that had a ton of enhancements, a ton of additional content, and a lot of fixes for the existing problems. And so that caught my attention. And alongside that, they also made the game playable and verified on the Steam Deck, which also saw, that was a huge injection in terms of expanding the potential user base for Cyberpunk. And they also promised that a major update that is going to use AMD FSR 2.0, the upscaling technology, the new version of the upscaling technology that's coming soon, FSR 2.0 or 2.1, is going to be supported in Cyberpunk, which means that will make the game even better on Steam Deck, where you really can take advantage of that upscaling technology. Plus, they introduced cross-platform saves, meaning you can start the game on PC and you can continue the game on console, or the other way around, you can start on console and continue on PC. There are some limitations, but it's effectively, it makes it possible for you to continue to pick up your save from one device and continue on another and so forth. And so that also caught my attention. At the same time, the anime show on Netflix, what's it called? Cyberpunk Edge Runners?
Yeah, I think that's what it is, yeah.
That came out on Netflix, and it was very positively reviewed on Netflix. And so CD Projekt Red, it reminds me of the story of No Man's Sky, and how almost 10 years ago, really, No Man's Sky, it launched to these huge expectations, and version 1.0 did not live up to the hype behind No Man's Sky, but the developers at Hello Games promised, we are going to make this game better. Just, trust us, maybe come revisit this game later, but we're going to make it better for you. And Cyberpunk has been on a similar trajectory. And the thing is, I was always intrigued by Cyberpunk. And now that I've been playing the game, I'm 7 hours into the game. A good sign for me is when I'm playing the game, I don't want to stop. And when I'm not playing the game, I continue thinking about it. That's usually a great sign for a video game that, catches does something, has something unique about it that, sits in your brain and you keep thinking about the game. And that's what's happening to me with Cyberpunk. So let's talk about Cyberpunk. It is a first-person RPG, action RPG, actually. From screenshots, it may look like a first-person shooter game. It really isn't. It's more similar to GTA, Grand Theft Auto, in first-person with RPG elements that are reminiscent of The Witcher. The basic idea is that you live in this future in this huge metropolis called Night City. And Night City is a huge city controlled by corporations, right? These different corporations that control the economy and control everything about life in Night City. And sort of the main gimmick, I guess, behind the story is in this future, it's become normal routine to have these cybernetic implants installed on you in the human body. And there's all kinds of these implants that people use to modify their body and to gain new skills and new knowledge and go beyond what is considered human, right? And so you have these implants that are, they give you better optics, so they give you better vision. Or you have these implants that allow you to check the sound source around your environment, or, implants that allow you to connect to a local network and control cameras and computers. Essentially, humans can turn themselves into these hybrid beings where it's part human, part computer. And you can modify, being a computer, you can control the software and you can modify and update and tweak your software. And so there's this whole story about what it actually means to be human and where do you draw the line, which is super fascinating. And in the game itself, you play as V. At the moment, as I'm saying this, I'm 7 hours into the game. They don't really tell you where you're coming from. They just tell you that after you used to live in Night City, you left Night City because something happened. You lived for a bit in Atlanta. And then you come back to Night City and you start taking on to these gigs, like these mercenary gigs, effectively. And as you do that, again, 7 hours, it's basically the beginning of the game. I'm taking on these gigs and I'm learning more about these different corporations and all these different storylines that exist in Night City. So the reason why I can't stop playing Cyberpunk, the story is one of them. The other is the sheer beauty of Cyberpunk. I'm playing on PC. I'm playing on my desktop PC, as well as on the laptop that we recently mentioned here
Right.
on Unwind, but it really looks that much better on my desktop PC, where I have an NVIDIA, I have an RTX 3080 Ti graphics card, and I'm playing on the PC that's connected to the beautiful OLED TV that I have in the living room. Now, I was playing the game at native 4K, and even at native 4K resolution, I could hit 60 frames per second, stable 60 frames per second, with the ray tracing medium settings. You have a bunch of graphical settings on PC. You have the usual low, medium, high settings, but you also have ray tracing low, medium, and ultra. And with ray tracing enabled, Night City being this sort of dystopian metropolis in the future with tons of neon lights and, beautiful neon colors and all these shiny surfaces that reflects off of each other, it is the kind of game that you want to play with ray tracing enabled, right?
Right.
To have that sort of diffused aspect of lights bouncing off of surfaces and making everything look better and more realistic. But then I realized I'm playing this game on my couch. Oh, well, on my temporary couch, on the old couch. We're still in the market for a new one. But I'm sitting 2.5 meters away from the TV. Should I really play at native 4K? Should my computer really push 4K resolution?
Mm-hmm.
Is it necessary? And I realized, what if I play this game at 1440p and use DLSS, the NVIDIA upscaling technology, to help me with the resolution and the performance? And as it turns out, and I've been doing a bunch of tests today and taking competitive screenshots, turning down the resolution, I don't notice a difference, right? Because I'm sitting far enough from the TV that I don't see the dip in resolution on the huge monitor, TV that I have in front of me. Mm-hmm. But I can enable ray tracing ultra settings because of that, because the graphics card is not pushing as many pixels, right? So I can enable ray tracing ultra settings, and I can lock the frame rate at 60 stable. So I'm playing at ray tracing ultra locked at 60 frames per second. And it looks gorgeous. Like, it's just incredible what it looks like. I could go even beyond that. I could say, let me play at 1440p, but ray tracing medium, for example, and use VSync to play with my TV as G-Sync, so I can match the frame rate and the refresh rate of the TV. I could play with VSync at 120 hertz. The game doesn't quite hit 120 frames at ray tracing medium settings, but it does hit 109, 110, which is incredible to think about. But I don't know, but I still prefer to, have stable frame rate, 60 frames per second with VSync enabled and ray tracing ultra, and it looks fantastic. So just the sheer eye candy of it, it really is something to look at.
This episode of Mac Stories Unwind is brought to you by Cosmic, the dashboard for your creativity. Built for designers, researchers, and writers, Cosmic's Infinite Canvas for the iPad and Mac lets you bring together notes, your writing, images, websites, PDFs, and a lot more in a single canvas called a universe, so you can stop switching between apps and focus on what you're creating. Everything in a Cosmic universe is a card, and cards from one canvas can be incorporated into another, making this the first Canvas app with the sort of transclusion found in note-taking apps like Roam Research and Obsidian. It's a powerful yet simple architecture that reduces friction so you can focus on your work. The flexibility of Cosmic's Canvas means that you can take notes, browse the web, collect PDFs, images, and other resources, and write all in one place. That encourages spatial thinking, making new connections and links between materials, and reduces the distractions all at once in a single easy-to-use interface. Cosmic is completely native, and it's a peer-to-peer solution that syncs your data between devices with no central server. Everything is encrypted end-to-end, too. You can publish your Cosmic canvases and cards to the web for sharing with colleagues, with even more collaborations coming in the future. Cosmic is available on the web now, too, making it accessible in more places than ever before. If you're looking for a new way to organize your thoughts, writing, and really anything else that you do, sign up for Cosmic today. Mac Stories readers can enjoy a free year of access just by using the link that we'll put in the show notes. Cosmic is available for download on the App Store and also offers great resources for users with its Substack newsletter and Discord community. Our thanks to Cosmic for their support of the show.
Really, what does it for me is the game. The game itself.
Yeah, it's a cool game. Yeah, it's a fun game.
It's a cool game. It's a fun game. It's like, what if Grand Theft Auto was set in the future and you had all of these sci-fi elements and you could modify yourself via cybernetic implants.
Right.
And of course, you can level up and you have a skill tree and you can get different weapons. You can get all sorts of weapons and you can install all these quick hacks. These quick hacks are basically like what if you install an additional chip that gives you a new feature, almost as if you were a computer or almost as if you were an app? Like I'm basically turning myself into the human mercenary version of Obsidian. Like I'm installing all these plugins on myself, right?
Right.
And there's some, if you know me, you know the customization as, you know,
Sure.
the kind of topic that we always discuss on app stories and Mac stories. And as you can imagine, customization in a video game where like I, as the main character, am effectively a piece of software. Like, of course, I'm into that.
Yeah, of course you are.
The combat is fun. You can choose to play with ranged weapons, meaning, you know, rifles and pistols. You can have melee combat with, you know, you can just punch people or use like a baseball bat or something. You can stealth. You can have a stealth approach. And you can use all these different techniques to like hack into the security cameras of a building that you're supposed to infiltrate and control the cameras to distract the enemies. Like you have a ton of freedom in terms of how you want to approach a mission. And that's also very cool. So yeah, the combination of Night City as a fascinating place to explore that looks beautiful on PC, and the RPG elements and the story, and you know all these different storylines that I'm picking up on. It's super fascinating, even from a philosophical perspective, like what it means to be human. If this is the kind of future where we're supposed to live, like it's kind of story that makes you think. And so yeah, I'm really enjoying this, and also I love that I can play the game at home on my PC. And when I'm not home, I can pick up my my cloud save from Steam, and I can continue playing on the Steam Deck. Obviously, on the Steam Deck, I gotta play at medium settings, and even at medium settings with ray tracing disabled, obviously, I not always hit 40 frames per second, but it's fine. I mean, I'm playing a PC game in the palm of my hands, and that's super cool. And when I'm back home, I can continue. So yeah.
Right. I was going to ask you about how you're playing on the Steam Deck because, interestingly enough, when I got my Steam Deck, this was one of the first games that I played. And that was primarily because I'd never played it. And it was in my Steam account because I kind of share that account with my kids. And someone at some point had bought this game. And I didn't, it was the most modern game that was in my Steam account. So I thought, all right, I'll give this a try and see what this can do on the Steam Deck, since it's a fairly beefy game. And I was wondering what kind of settings you have it at. I actually just dove in with whatever the defaults are.
Yeah, they have a Steam Deck preset, and I recommend using that. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, that makes sense. I've only played for about an hour or so, but I see what you're saying, because it does have that kind of Grand Theft Auto vibe where you're just kind of thrown into the storyline and you have missions to accomplish. But it's neat because as you said, it's in a futuristic world. So yeah, I have to play it more. I've spread myself pretty thin with games right now because I'm trying out.
Yes.
You know what? I'm trying a lot of different things.
Yes, same.
Right. Partly because I just got the Steam Deck and I want to try it with a bunch of different things. Partly because I've been testing some hardware with the iPhone and iPhone controller that will, by the time this show goes up, I'll have the review up of the Razer Kishi version 2, which is an iPhone game controller. There's just a lot of things I've been trying. And in preparing that review for Mac Stories of the Razer Kishi, I started playing Shovel Knight Dig, which is an Apple Arcade title. Now, this game is also on the Nintendo Switch and on Steam, so you can play it in multiple places. I have only tried it on the iPhone because I've got an arcade account as part of my Apple One account, and I play so few Apple Arcade games that I thought, you know what, this is one I'm actually going to try and see how it is. And you know what? It's pretty great. If you've played Shovel Knight before, you'll know what this game is kind of like. It's got its own twist, but is very much a traditional Shovel Knight game in that you play as the Shovel Knight, a very colorful knight with a shovel. It's very, it's pixelated graphics, kind of a retro style with great animation, like frenetic action, just like incredible pace of stuff going on in this game, and a really neat soundtrack. And so the premise of this particular installment is that the Shovel Knight is just taking it easy, sleeping by his campfire, when the Drill Knight comes, steals his bag of loot, and drills down into the ground beneath the surface. And the Shovel Knight then, goes off and pursues him to collect back his gems, his lost loot, and to defeat him and the other and other bosses in the game. I think that there are a total of 50 different achievements in this game. I'm not super far into it, but it did take me back very quickly to the classic Shovel Knight games, which I haven't played in a long time. Shovel Knight's a lot of fun. It's really hard. It's a roguelike game where, once you die, you lose some of whatever you've collected along the way. So you save some, and then you start over and go from there. Here, you lose a lot of what you've gained in each run, but you do retain some of your gems, and the gems can be used for things like getting back some of those things that you've collected on the way. And so what you're doing is you drop down into this hole, and it's pretty simple the way you play this. Your B button is your digging button, and your A button is your jumping button, and you just work your way down, kind of Dig Dug style, which is very old classic 80s game, through the levels of dirt. At times, you have the ability to clear entire areas very quickly with one swipe of your shovel. And as you go, you collect gems that you had lost to the Drill Knight. And you're pursued by enemies. There are, flying eyeballs and all kinds of other, there's spikes and all kinds of other crazy creatures that are after you during each run. Blobs of jelly and, it's kind of a horror theme, I suppose. But you're jumping around using your shovel to kind of jump even higher and defeat the enemies and collect things and dig from one particular area to another. And I found that it's just the pace of it. It's hard. It's a roguelike game, but the pacing is really nice. The animation is fantastic. And I just love these kinds of super brightly colored action roguelike games like this. Now, I tried this briefly with touch controls, and I don't recommend it because it's one of those games. They're pretty sloppy controls in this, which makes it easier in that you run your left finger left and right to kind of move left and right, and then you have different gestures for jumping and digging. But it's much better if you have some kind of controller, and you can play it, of course, on an iPhone or an iPad, and I believe it's on Apple TV. But for me, it's kind of a perfect iPhone game. And you may have seen games that involve digging on the iPhone before. And one reason that is because the iPhone is particularly well suited for vertical play, and digging games tend to be like that. Either digging or climbing games tend to work really well that way. But that's not how this game works. This game is meant to be played in landscape mode. So you dig down and get, which I kind of like, because you see more kind of left to right, and so there's more that can be done with the maze that the dungeons that you're crawling through. So really fun game. I'm enjoying it, but it's like I said, both available on the iPhone as part of Apple Arcade, but also on the Switch and on Steam if you want to try it there instead.
All right, I gotta check it out. Sounds really cool.
Yeah, it's a fun one. All right, Federico, that's it for this week with Mac Stories Unwind. You can find me and Federico over at macstories.net. Federico is on Twitter and Instagram, where he's at Viticci. That's VITICCI. And I'm at John Voorhees. JOHNVOORHSS. Talk to you next week, Federico.
Ciao, John.